The skies of Virelon Prime were burning. Every corner of the once peaceful world was under attack. Firestorms spread across the cities, and towers that had stood for centuries fell like paper. The alien defenders fought desperately, but their weapons were weak compared to the invaders' power. Entire fleets had been destroyed in orbit, leaving the planet alone and hopeless. The people cried out to the stars, begging anyone, anything for help. In the command dome, Commander Terran watched the horror unfold through the cracked observation glass. His officers shouted updates, but their words blended into noise. He could see the enemy ships blotting out the sky, firing wave after wave of plasma into the surface. The defense systems had already failed. Their last orbital shield had collapsed an hour ago. "Keep transmitting the distress signal," he said quietly. "Someone will hear us." An officer turned to him, shaking his head. "No one is coming, sir. The Council doesn't care about outworld colonies." Terran didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the communications screen, watching the repeating message pulse into the void. He knew the truth. No one in the galaxy wanted to risk angering the invaders. Virelon Prime was already written off as lost. Still, the signal went out, one final cry for help. Hours passed. The battle outside grew quieter, not because it was ending, but because there was nothing left to destroy. The enemy ships began sweeping low over the ruins, scanning for survivors. The dome trembled as the power core started to overload. The lights flickered and the room filled with smoke. "We're finished," whispered one of the younger officers. "There's no one left to save us." Then, through the static of the failing radio, a faint voice broke through. It was calm, deep, human. "This is the Terran Alliance. Distress signal received. Help is coming." For a moment, no one moved. The words didn't make sense. "Terran?" Terran repeated softly. "That can't be. Humanity disappeared centuries ago." The technician replayed the signal. It was the same voice, stronger now. "This is Commander Rains of the Terran ship Valiant. We received your call. Stand by." Everyone in the room froze. Some began to cry. Others laughed like it was a cruel joke. But Terran felt something he hadn't felt in days. Hope. Minutes later, the planetary sensors started to scream. The radar filled with blinding signatures too large and too many to count. Energy readings spiked beyond measurable levels. "Multiple warp breaches detected," shouted an officer. "Something's coming through, hundreds of them." Outside, the night sky flashed white. The air vibrated as reality itself seemed to bend. Then, with a sound like rolling thunder, the first ship emerged from hyperspace. It was enormous, sleek, metallic, and shining with blue light. Its hull was carved with strange patterns that glowed faintly like veins of energy. Behind it, another ship appeared. Then another. Then hundreds more. The sky filled with metal giants, each one moving in perfect formation. The invaders stopped firing. Their scanners couldn't even process what they were seeing. The lead ship, a massive triangular vessel, descended slowly until its shadow covered the burning city. It was larger than any structure ever built on Virelon Prime. Through the smoke and clouds, its name became visible across the hull: TAS Valiant. A deep voice came through every comm channel on the planet. "This is Commander Rains of the Terran Alliance. Your distress signal was received. We will assist." The alien survivors looked to the sky. For the first time, they saw the face of their saviors, the Deathworlders. Humanity had returned. The enemy fleet regrouped quickly. Their commander barked orders. "Fire everything. Wipe them out before they deploy." Plasma blasts ripped through the air toward the human ships. The beams hit the Valiant's shields and scattered like rain against glass. Then the humans responded. Without a word, the Deathworlder fleet moved. Hundreds of bright blue energy lines stretched across space as their cannons fired. The explosions were silent at first, then deafening. One by one, the enemy ships exploded, their burning remains raining down through the atmosphere. The sky turned from red to gold as the light of the human weapons filled it. Inside the dome, Commander Terran watched in disbelief. "They're fighting for us," he whispered. "Humans are fighting for us." The Terran fleet advanced like a wave. Every movement was calculated, every strike precise. They weren't just powerful, they were disciplined. The enemy tried to retreat, but the humans surrounded them in seconds. It wasn't a battle. It was a lesson in power. On the surface, human dropships began descending through the smoke. Each ship cut through the clouds like a blade of light. When they landed, soldiers in silver armor stepped out. Their visors glowed gold, their armor humming with energy. They moved fast, rescuing civilians trapped in ruins, helping the wounded, and stabilizing the power grid. One alien girl stood in the rubble, watching a towering human soldier approach. She clutched a broken toy and whispered, "Are you real?" The soldier knelt beside her, his armor shining in the firelight. "Very real," he said softly, handing her a ration pack. "You're safe now." The enemy's last ship tried to flee, but the Valiant turned its main cannon toward it. A single beam of white light shot forward, slicing through the enemy cruiser like paper. Silence followed. The battle was over. The comms buzzed again. Commander Raines's voice echoed through the colony. "This planet is secure. Medical and engineering teams are deploying. No one will be left behind." Commander Terran leaned against the console, his hands shaking. He looked up at the massive ship still hovering above the planet. "They came," he whispered. The Deathworlders came. Outside, the fires slowly began to die. The sky turned from orange to soft blue as daylight broke through the clouds. Above it all, the Terran fleet floated like a wall of light, silent, watchful, and unshakable. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy's most feared species had returned. They hadn't come to conquer. They had come to protect. The transmission that spread through the stars carried only one message. When the galaxy cries for help, humanity answers. The fires of Virellon Prime still smoldered when dawn came. Smoke curled into the morning sky, mixing with the golden light of a quiet sun. The people who had survived the invasion walked among the ruins, their eyes filled with disbelief. The enemy that had once seemed unstoppable was gone. Only the blackened wreckage of their ships remained, scattered across the horizon like broken wings. Commander Terran stood outside the shattered dome, the cold wind brushing against his face. He still could not believe what had happened. Humanity, long thought extinct, had answered their call for help. He watched the silver ships in orbit glitter like stars, covering the sky in perfect formation. They didn't just look powerful, they looked eternal. From above, the Terran flagship Valiant hovered silently, its shadow stretching across the plains. On the bridge, Commander Raines stood before a wide viewing screen, watching the alien world below. "Casualty reports?" he asked. Lieutenant Aria Vale turned from her console. "Minimal, sir. The enemy fleet is destroyed." "The colony still stands," Raines nodded. "And the civilians?" "Rescue teams have already started evacuations. Our medics are on the ground." Raines stared quietly at the planet. "Good. Then we begin rebuilding." Below, human dropships landed across the ruins, kicking up dust and debris. Soldiers in silver and blue armor spread through the streets, clearing rubble and setting up shelters. Their armor glowed faintly under the sunlight. They didn't look like conquerors. They looked like guardians. A group of alien survivors approached them cautiously. One of the humans, a tall soldier with a gold-tinted visor, stopped his work and removed his helmet. His face was young, scarred but calm. "You're safe now," he said gently. The aliens hesitated. They had heard the legends. Humans were supposed to be monsters, beings shaped by death and danger. Yet this one smiled. "Let us help," he said, his tone steady and kind. As the hours passed, the humans worked without rest. They repaired generators, restored clean water, and treated the wounded with advanced medkits. Commander Terran walked through the camps, amazed by their discipline. "You move like one mind," he told a human engineer. The man just chuckled. "We learned long ago that chaos kills faster than war." But the peace didn't last long. In the sky, distant flashes began to appear. The humans detected them first. Multiple warp signatures at the edge of the system. "Enemy reinforcements," said Lieutenant Vale, her voice calm but serious. "Their numbers are growing." Raines didn't hesitate. "Signal all ships. Battle stations." The alien commanders panicked when they heard. "We can't survive another attack," Terran shouted through the comms. "You won't have to," Raines replied. "The Deathworlders don't retreat." Moments later, the human fleet came alive. The massive warships moved into formation, engines glowing bright blue. The sky over Virellon turned into a storm of light as dozens of Terran ships took position above the planet. The enemy fleet dropped out of hyperspace, larger, louder, and angrier. They filled the edge of the sky with crimson streaks, weapons charging. Their commander sent an open transmission. "Surrender the planet, humans. This is not your war. Rains listened in silence before replying. Every cry for help is our war. The two fleets clashed above the planet in a storm of energy and flame. Blinding beams cut through space, painting the heavens with streaks of light. Explosions rippled like thunder across the horizon. The alien civilians watched in awe as the human ships held the line. The Valiant led the defense, firing precise bursts of energy that shredded the enemy's formation. One Terran cruiser took a heavy hit, its hull burning bright as it spiraled downward. But before it could crash, 3 smaller ships darted forward and caught it in tractor fields, pulling it back to safety. The coordination was perfect, humans saving their own without a word. On the ground, the shockwaves from the battle rumbled through the soil. Commander Terran stared upward as streaks of fire crossed the sky. His soldiers looked terrified, but he spoke calmly.
"Watch them," he said.
"Watch how they fight." Up above, the enemy fleet began to push harder. They outnumbered the humans 2-1. But the Deathworlders adapted quickly, shifting formation and striking at weak points. Their ships moved as if they shared one thought. The enemy fired again, a beam large enough to pierce the atmosphere. It struck the Valiant's shields directly, lighting the entire sky. For a moment, everything turned white. The energy wave rolled over the planet. Towers cracked. The people covered their faces. Then slowly, the light faded. The human flagship still stood. Its shields glowed red-hot but unbroken. Commander Rains's voice echoed through every channel. "We hold the line." The Terran fleet counterattacked with a wave of blue-white light that ripped through the enemy formation. Their ships scattered, engines failing, hulls torn apart. One final shot from the Valiant's main cannon turned the enemy command ship into dust. Silence filled the void. The battle was over. Again, humanity had done the impossible. Rains stood on the bridge, breathing slowly. His crew cheered quietly, but he raised a hand. "Save it," he said softly. "We're not done yet." He looked toward the planet below, where smoke still rose from shattered cities. "They need us more now than ever." Hours later, human ships descended once again, carrying food, supplies, and engineers. The aliens gathered around the landing zones, no longer afraid. They watched in awe as the humans rebuilt power grids and purified rivers. A child offered a flower to a passing soldier. The man stopped, removed his glove, and gently took it. "Thank you," he said simply before returning to work. Commander Terran stood beside the human commander when they finally met face to face. Rains was taller than he expected, his uniform simple but marked with the symbol of the Terran Alliance. "You didn't have to come," Terran said quietly. "You could have ignored us like everyone else." Rains smiled faintly. "We could have, but then we wouldn't be human." The alien commander looked up at the Terran ship still shining above the clouds. "Why do you help worlds that aren't your own?" Rains turned toward the horizon. "Because we remember what it's like to call for help and hear nothing." That night, the people of Virelon Prime looked to the stars and saw the Deathworlders guarding them still. The fear that had once filled their hearts was gone. In its place grew something new: trust. The sky glowed with the light of Terran ships, forming a ring of safety around the planet. And as silence returned, one thought echoed across every mind on that world. Humanity had returned, and they did not come as conquerors. They came as guardians. The night sky over Virelon Prime glowed faintly with the light of orbiting Terran warships. From the surface, the ships looked like silver stars hanging low, silent and watchful. The people of the colony no longer trembled when they looked up. They felt safe. For the first time since the war began, there was peace. But Commander Rains knew peace never lasted. It was only the space between storms. Inside the Valiant's command deck, holographic screens shimmered with reports. Human medics had treated thousands of wounded aliens. Engineers had repaired most of the colony's power grid. Everything seemed stable. But the tension in the air told another story. Lieutenant Arya Vale broke the silence. "Long-range sensors are detecting strange energy fluctuations, sir. Not normal warp signatures." Rains didn't look away from the window. "How far?" "Edge of the system. Too faint to identify, but the readings are growing." Rains's expression hardened. "Get me tactical command. I want the fleet on alert." Down on the surface, Commander Terran stood among alien workers rebuilding what was left of the capital. Human drones buzzed overhead, helping carry supplies and rebuild infrastructure. He had never seen technology move this fast or operate this quietly. The humans worked with precision, not pride. They didn't boast about their strength. They simply acted as if saving an entire planet was ordinary. A small child ran past him, chasing a hovering repair drone. She laughed, a sound Terran hadn't heard in months. He turned toward the sky, whispering to himself, "They brought back hope." Hours later, the quiet calm was shattered. The ground trembled slightly as the Valiant sent out an emergency broadcast. The voice of a human officer echoed across every radio frequency. "Attention, all ground units. Enemy reinforcements detected. Large fleet entering the system. Civilians to shelters immediately." Terran's blood ran cold. "Not again," he muttered. He rushed to the command terminal where human soldiers were already coordinating evacuations. One of them turned to him, calm even in the chaos. "We'll handle the fighting. Get your people underground." Terran looked at the soldier's calm face. "How can you face them so easily?" The man adjusted his visor and replied, "Because fear doesn't win wars, discipline does." Up above, the void began to shimmer. Space rippled like water, and then the stars disappeared behind massive shapes. The enemy fleet had returned. Larger than before, darker, more organized. At its center was a monstrous warship, easily 10 times the size of the Valiant. Its hull glowed with crimson light like molten metal. Rain stood at the command window, watching it emerge. "Identify that vessel," he ordered. Arya scanned quickly. Her voice was tight. "It's not a standard enemy design. Energy output is unstable. It's using dark matter." "Sir, if that core detonates—" "I know," Rain said quietly. "It could vaporize half this system." The enemy fleet hailed them. The alien admiral appeared as a hologram, a towering figure with black armor and cold eyes. "Terrans," he sneered. "You should have stayed hidden in your grave world. You protect weaklings who will never repay you." Rains didn't blink. "We don't protect them for repayment. We protect them because it's right." The alien laughed, a harsh metallic sound. "Then die for your morality." The line cut. The enemy opened fire. The first volley shook the heavens. Blinding red beams tore across the void. Human ships moved fast, forming defensive layers around the Valiant. Explosions rippled like fireworks, lighting the blackness. The Valiant's shields glowed blue as they absorbed the impact. "Return fire," Rains commanded. The Deathworlder fleet responded instantly. Dozens of Terran cruisers unleashed streams of white energy, cutting through the darkness like lightning. Every shot was precise, measured, devastating. Enemy ships exploded one after another, breaking their tight formation. But the dark matter warship kept advancing, ignoring its losses. Its weapon systems began charging again, so powerful that even the sensors couldn't calculate their yield. "Sir, that ship's charging a planetary weapon," Arya shouted. "Then we stop it now," Rains said. "Signal the fleet, converge on my mark. All power to forward cannons." Outside, hundreds of Terran ships changed formation at once. They moved in unison, creating a spiral around the massive enemy vessel. The sight was both terrifying and beautiful. Metal giants dancing in perfect rhythm. Each Terran ship fired bursts of concentrated plasma at key points along the enemy's hull. The sky erupted into color, but the dark matter cannon was still charging. Its red glow grew brighter, the energy pulse visible from the planet below. Terran watched it from the surface and whispered, That weapon will destroy us all." In orbit, the human flagship Valiant moved directly into the weapon's path. Arya's voice trembled. "Sir, if we stay here—" "I know," Rain said. His face was calm, his eyes steady. Humanity didn't survive its own world just to run from another. The enemy fired. A beam of crimson energy thick as a mountain shot toward the planet. The Valiant's shields expanded, glowing like a star. The two energies collided with a roar that shook the system. Clouds on the planet rippled from the shockwave. For seconds, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then slowly, the red light began to fade. When the glare cleared, the Valiant was still there, smoking, damaged but alive. The bridge was filled with sparks, alarms, and smoke. Arya coughed but smiled weakly. "We're still here." Rain straightened. "Then let's end this." The Valiant redirected its main cannon's power directly into the enemy ship's core. The other Terran ships followed suit. Beams of white light pierced the darkness, merging into one massive blast that struck the dark matter vessel dead center. For a second, nothing happened. Then the enemy ship split apart, erupting in a silent explosion that stretched across the stars. The battle was over. The people on Virayon watched the sky burn with blue and red light. Then the stars returned, and the silence that followed was pure and deep. Terran fell to his knees, unable to speak. The humans had saved them again, even when the cost was unthinkable. Hours later, the Valiant's damaged hull glowed faintly as repair drones worked tirelessly. The human fleet began to regroup. On the bridge, Arya looked at her commander. "Sir, we should pull back. The ship needs repairs." Rains looked at the planet below and shook his head. "Not until they can stand without us." Back on the surface, the survivors built fires under the quiet stars. They looked up at the human ships still circling the world like silver guardians. A young alien boy asked his father, "Why do they fight for us?" The father smiled softly. "Because they remember what it means to be alone." Above them, the Valiant's engines hummed gently. The humans didn't celebrate. They just watched the stars in silence, always ready for the next call for help. The dawn over Virelon Prime was soft and pale. The battle was only hours behind them, but the silence that followed felt unreal, as if the world itself didn't know what to do without the sound of war. Smoke drifted slowly over the cities. Here and there, the glow of Terran construction drones flickered like stars fallen to Earth. Humanity had saved them again, yet Commander Rains did not smile. Peace was never permanent. He could feel the next storm already stirring. On the bridge of the Valiant, engineers moved quietly between consoles. Hull plates were being replaced, weapon cores recalibrated, and the last of the wounded sent to medical bays. Lieutenant Arya Vale studied a faint signal pulsing at the edge of her screen. "It's repeating, sir," she said. Rains walked over. "Origin? Unknown. It's not an enemy transmission. Frequency matches the old Terran beacon network." Rains frowned. "Run a deep trace. I want to know who's calling us this time." Down on the surface, Commander Terran walked through a temporary camp built by both humans and Virelons. Tall silver tents glimmered in the light. The air smelled of dust, solder, and cooked rations. Alien children ran around human soldiers without fear now. One of the engineers showed a group of Virelons how to weld reinforcement plates. Terran watched quietly, thinking how strange it was that the most feared species in the galaxy had become its protectors. As he turned toward the horizon, something caught his eye, a shimmer of blue light in the distant mountains. "What is that?" he muttered. The human sensors detected it too. From orbit, the Valiant's scanners registered a huge energy surge. Arya's voice sharpened. "Sir, that signal is coming from the planet itself." Within minutes, an entire team of Terran scientists and soldiers descended to investigate. The beacon was buried beneath stone and sand, older than any building on the planet. When the humans reached it, they stood silently in front of a massive metallic ring half sunk into the ground. Strange markings glowed faintly on its surface, the same runes found on ancient Terran ships. A low hum filled the air. Rain stepped forward, his voice steady. "Activate the translator. Let's hear what it has to say." The markings brightened, and a gentle synthetic voice echoed through every communicator. "To those who endure, humanity stands with you." The words repeated, growing stronger until they reached into orbit, then beyond. The beacon had awakened after centuries of silence, its signal spreading across the stars. On the Valiant, Arya stared at the expanding wave on her screen. "Sir, that transmission, it's being picked up by every Terran relay in range. They're all answering." Rains felt a chill. Then the others will come. Far across space, in forgotten systems, old Terran fleets stirred from dormancy. Ships hidden in asteroid fields powered up. Long-dead colonies flickered with light again. Humanity's network of guardians, silent for generations, was alive once more. But not everyone celebrated. The Galactic Council, watching from afar, panicked as the beacons flared to life. To them, the return of the Deathworlders meant danger. They remembered wars humanity had once fought. The balance of power humans had shattered simply by existing. In secret, the Council sent out a command: contain the Terrans or destroy them before they grow stronger. On Virelon, however, life flourished. Farms reopened, markets returned, and laughter echoed through streets rebuilt with Terran help. Commander Terran often joined the humans at sunrise, watching their engineers plan irrigation systems and hospitals. "You do this everywhere you go?" he asked one morning. Rains nodded. "We learned that winning battles isn't enough. You have to win the future too." Terran smiled faintly. "And when you finish rebuilding us, where will you go?" Rains looked toward the sky. "Wherever another beacon calls." That evening, the peaceful hum of life was broken by an alarm. The Council's fleets had entered the system. Their message was short. Humanity's expansion violates interstellar law. Deactivate all Terran beacons or face removal. Terran read the transmission beside Rains. They're afraid of you, he said quietly. Rains sighed. They're afraid of hope that doesn't belong to them. From orbit, hundreds of Council warships spread across the stars, their weapons armed, but not yet fired. The Valiant stood alone at the center, its hull reflecting the light of 3 suns. Arya turned to her commander. Orders? Rains's voice was calm. Transmit to all channels. Every ship, every city, every Council station received the same message. We are not here to rule. We are here because someone cried for help. You may silence our weapons, but you cannot silence that call. Humanity answers. The Council ships hesitated. Their commanders had seen what the Deathworlders could do, and none wished to ignite that fire. Slowly, one by one, their fleets began to withdraw. No shots were fired. Only silence remained. When the last Council ship vanished into hyperspace, the Valiant's crew cheered softly. Arya smiled at Rains. You knew they wouldn't risk it. Rains looked tired but peaceful. They just needed a reminder that power doesn't always mean destruction. Later, as night fell over Virelon Prime, the beacon's light shimmered across the sky like a new star. The aliens called it the Light of Terra. Children pointed at it every evening before bed. It became a symbol, a promise carved into the heavens. The Deathworlders were watching, and they would answer again. Commander Terran stood on a rebuilt balcony, the city alive behind him, and whispered, When the galaxy cried, humanity answered. Now the galaxy will remember. Above, the Valiant turned slowly toward the next signal flickering faintly in the dark. A new world in need, another cry waiting to be heard. Engines flared blue, slicing through the clouds as the mighty Deathworlder fleet prepared to jump once more into the endless stars. The next morning, Virelon Prime glowed with a new kind of light. It wasn't the fire of battle or the reflection of warships, it was sunlight on rebuilding cities. Humans and Virelons worked side by side, clearing debris, restoring power, and planting new seeds where the soil had burned. Hope had replaced fear. Yet above the planet, the Terran fleet remained, still vigilant, still ready. Humanity had saved this world, but peace in the galaxy was never so simple. In the command dome, Commander Terran met with his advisors. Their voices were quiet but tense. The Council will not forgive this, one said. They think humanity has broken the balance. Another added, they fear the Deathworlders will rise again and rule as they once could have. Terran's jaw tightened. They didn't come here to rule, he said firmly. They came when no one else would. But even as he spoke, he could see doubt in his officers' eyes. The same fear that haunted the galaxy was spreading through his own people. Up in orbit, Commander Rains stood on the bridge of the Valiant, staring at the reports coming in from other systems. The Terran beacons that had awakened during the last battle were transmitting everywhere. Worlds long abandoned were lighting up across the star map. Humanity was returning, not as conquerors but as saviors. Yet he could already feel the political storm forming. Lieutenant Arya approached, holding a datapad. More Council fleets have moved into nearby sectors. Officially, they're monitoring the situation. Unofficially, they're preparing for conflict. Rains looked out at the stars. Fear makes rulers blind, he said quietly. They'll think strength means ambition. They'll try to stop what they don't understand. The Valiant's communication screen blinked. An incoming transmission appeared, a Council ambassador, her face cold and sharp. Commander Rains, she began, the Council has voted unanimously. Humanity is to deactivate all Terran beacons and withdraw its fleets from alien space. Rains stood straight. And if we refuse? Then you will be treated as a rogue power. The Deathworlders will be hunted. For a long moment, the human commander said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but unyielding. We don't answer to fear, Ambassador. We answer to need. The connection cut abruptly. Silence returned to the bridge. Arya exhaled slowly. They'll attack us if we stay. Rains turned to her. If we leave, every world that called for help will die. He looked back at the glowing planet below. No, we stay. That decision spread through the galaxy faster than light. Some celebrated it. Worlds that had been ignored by the Council sent messages of thanks, their people cheering the return of humanity. But others cursed the name of the Deathworlders, warning that their power would destroy everything once again. The galaxy began to split. On the surface, tension rose. Rumors whispered that humanity planned to take Virelon for themselves. Propaganda from the Council filled the channels. The Deathworlders come with promises but end with domination. Crowds formed in the cities, some carrying banners of gratitude, others shouting for the humans to leave. Terran stood before one of those crowds. The air was heavy with dust and anger. "Listen to me," he shouted. "You are alive because of them." A voice from the back yelled, "We traded one enemy for another." The crowd erupted into shouting. Terran soldiers tried to calm them, but the fear was spreading like fire. At that moment, a projection filled the sky. Commander Rain's image appeared above the city, his voice steady and clear. "People of Virelon, humanity came because you called. We will leave when your world no longer needs us, not before, not after." His calm tone cut through the noise. "We don't ask for tribute. We ask that you live. That's all." The crowd slowly grew quiet. For a brief moment, the fear faded. But far from Deathworld, fleets were moving. The Council had launched what they called a containment initiative. Hundreds of ships began surrounding systems where Terran beacons had awakened. To the galaxy, it looked like a standoff between two ancient powers, the Council and the Deathworlders. Inside the Valiant, Rains studied the incoming data. "They'll blockade us soon," Arya warned. "If we fight back, they'll use it to justify war." Rains leaned on the console, his voice low. "Then we won't fight, not yet. We'll show them restraint they never expected from us." He opened a fleet-wide broadcast. "To all Terran ships, defensive protocols only. No aggression unless fired upon." His voice carried across thousands of human vessels. "The galaxy needs to see who we are, not who they remember." The standoff began 3 days later. Council warships arrived at the edge of Virelon's orbit, their silver hulls gleaming under the twin suns. They formed a circle around the Terran fleet. For hours, no one moved. The silence between them was heavier than any battle. On the ground, Terran watched from the control tower. "They've surrounded you," he said into the comms. Rain's reply was calm. "Let them. The galaxy is watching." The first shot came from an impatient Council captain, an energy bolt that struck a small Terran scout ship. The impact flared bright across the atmosphere. Every sensor lit up. "Return fire?" Arya asked sharply. Rains hesitated for only a second. "Disable, don't destroy." The Deathworlder fleet moved like lightning. Blue beams lanced through the void, targeting enemy engines and weapons with perfect precision. Within minutes, half the Council's blockade ships were disabled, floating harmlessly in orbit. Not one was destroyed. On the surface, the people of Virelon watched the sky flash blue and white. Then the light faded, leaving silence once again. The human fleet hovered untouched and unshaken. Rain's voice echoed through the comms once more, this time broadcast to every ship in range. "We are not the monsters you fear. We are the shield you abandoned." The Council fleets retreated hours later. No one wanted to face a power that could win without bloodshed. The battle that could have started a war instead ended in silence and awe. That night, the stars above Virelon shimmered brighter than before. The humans stayed in orbit, but they didn't raise weapons. They continued rebuilding, teaching, and healing. The divide between fear and faith in humanity was still there, but for the first time, the galaxy began to question what they truly knew about the Deathworlders. In the quiet of the bridge, Arya looked at her commander. "You could have destroyed them all." Rain smiled faintly. "We could have, yes. But sometimes power isn't proven by what you destroy. It's proven by what you protect." The beacons across the galaxy continued to pulse, spreading that same message to every corner of the stars. The stars above Virelon Prime were calm again, but every commander in the Terran fleet knew it wouldn't last. The Council's retreat was only a pause, not peace. The galaxy was watching now, and whispers of war spread like wildfire. Some called the humans saviors. Others called them the greatest threat the stars had ever known. On the bridge of the Valiant, Commander Rains studied the star map in silence. Dozens of Terran beacons were now active, shining across the galaxy like blue fires. Each one marked a world calling for help. Worlds ignored by the Council, worlds left to die. "They're reaching out faster than we can answer," said Lieutenant Arya Vale, scanning the data. "If we respond to all of them, we'll stretch our fleet too thin." Rains nodded slowly. "We're not an empire. We can't be everywhere at once. But we can remind the galaxy what we stand for." The ship's comms beeped. Commander Terran appeared on the holo display from the planet's surface. "Commander Rains," he said, "the Council is broadcasting messages across nearby systems. They're painting humanity as a danger to civilization." Rains's eyes narrowed. "Then they'll force us to choose, either retreat or prove them wrong." Terran hesitated. "And if proving them wrong starts a war?" Rains turned toward the window, watching the stars. "Then the galaxy will see who fired first." Far away, Council fleets gathered near the edge of Terran-controlled space. Their admirals argued over strategy. Some wanted peace, but most demanded action. Fear was an easy fuel, and fear of humanity was older than history. Days later, the inevitable happened. The first Council attack didn't come to Vireo. It came to another world, a mining colony that had recently activated its own Terran beacon. The distress signal reached the Valiant instantly. Rains didn't hesitate. "Plot a course," he ordered. "We're going." Arya looked at him. "Sir, if we move the fleet, Virelon will be undefended." He shook his head. "We taught them how to fight. Now it's their turn to stand. The Deathworlders don't run from those who cry for help." Within minutes, the Terran armada jumped to hyperspace. The blue glow of their drives lit the skies as the ships vanished one by one. The people of Virelon watched the sky fade back to stars and whispered silent prayers for the humans who had saved them. The Valiant reappeared above the colony world of Daros IV. What they saw was horror. The city domes were shattered, the surface scorched by bombardment. Council warships hovered like vultures. Without a word, Rains gave the command. "Shields up. Broadcast wide." A calm human voice filled every channel across the battlefield. "This is Commander Rains of the Terran Alliance. Cease your assault immediately. We will not allow genocide under any flag." The Council Admiral on the other end laughed. "You don't make the rules anymore, human." "The galaxy does." Rains's tone stayed quiet. "Then the galaxy has forgotten who we are." The Valiant's forward cannons fired. The light of their strike was brighter than dawn. Council ships exploded in neat, silent bursts, precise, controlled. Terran frigates moved like lightning, weaving through enemy lines, disabling weapons without destroying the ships themselves. It was a masterclass in restraint and power, but the enemy had come prepared. From behind the burning wrecks, 3 massive dreadnoughts emerged, their hulls covered in reflective black alloy. "Dark ships," Arya whispered. "They're built with human tech, old Terran designs." Rains stared at the scanners. "So they've been copying us." His voice turned cold. "Then let's remind them what the originals can do." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Terran vessels formed a wall of light, moving with perfect timing. The dreadnoughts fired beams strong enough to cut through moons, but the Deathworlders met them head-on. Shields glowed, energy rippled, and the void became a storm of brilliance. From the surface of Daros Thar, survivors watched the spectacle above, unable to tell where fire ended and light began. A child asked her mother, "Who are they?" The mother smiled weakly. "They're the ones who came when no one else would." After hours of battle, the Terrans gained the upper hand. The dreadnought's engines failed one after another. Commander Rains gave his final command. "No destruction. Disable and retreat." His officers nodded. Within minutes, the Council fleet was crippled but alive. When the fighting stopped, Rains opened a new broadcast, sending it not just to Daros IV, but to the entire galaxy. "This is Commander Rains of the Terran Alliance. We do not seek war. We seek balance. For too long, you've let power rule compassion. That ends now." His voice carried through relay stations and open frequencies. Billions heard him. Worlds that had once feared humanity began to question the Council's lies. Across the stars, more beacons activated, more cries for help. The galaxy was changing and everyone knew it. On Virelon, Commander Terran watched the transmission with pride. The humans hadn't just saved worlds, they had reignited courage. But he also saw the danger. For every world that joined humanity, another prepared to fight them. "You've started something the Council can't control," he told Rains through a private channel. "You've become the spark." Rains replied quietly, "A spark is harmless until someone tries to smother it." That night, as the Valiant orbited Daros IV, Rains stood alone in the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before him. "Every beacon we answer brings another enemy," he said softly. Arya joined him, her tone gentle. "Then why keep answering?" Rains smiled faintly. "Because one day the enemies will stop. and all that will be left are the people we saved. Below them, the fires of Daros 4 were slowly dying, replaced by the blue glow of Terran relief ships. The people gathered on the surface, staring up at the sky where the human fleet shimmered like a constellation of hope. The next morning, a single line of text was transmitted from the Terran Alliance to every star system. We do not conquer. We answer. That message spread faster than any ship, faster than fear. To some it was a promise, to others a warning, but to those who had called for help and been heard, it was salvation. In the quiet of space, the Deathworlder fleet turned toward the next beacon. Engines flared and the stars shifted once more. Humanity moved forward, not to rule the galaxy but to protect it from its own silence.